The old Victorian house stood on a desolate, windswept hill overlooking the quiet, unassuming town of Havenwood. It was a skeletal silhouette against the bruised twilight sky, its intricate gables like clawed fingers reaching for the heavens, its multitude of windows, dark and empty, seeming to stare with 1,000 vacant, unblinking eyes. Locals, with a shiver that had nothing to do with the chill wind, simply called it Blackwood Manor, though no Blackwoods had drawn breath within its decaying walls for over a century. Rumors, thick and insidious, clung to the very stones of the house like the tenacious, strangling ivy that had long since claimed its exterior. Whispers of generations of madness, of inexplicable disappearances, of a pervasive, chilling silence that seemed to swallow sound whole, leaving only the faint echo of despair. Dr. Eris Thorne, a man whose entire existence was meticulously dedicated to the tangible, the provable, and the empirically verifiable, scoffed openly at such quaint, provincial superstitions. He was a renowned parapsychologist, a titan in his field, whose reputation was built on systematically debunking alleged paranormal phenomena with rigorous scientific method. He arrived at Blackwood Manor in a sleek, black SUV, a stark contrast to the decrepit grandeur of the house, accompanied by his carefully selected team of 3. There was Lena, his sharp, intensely pragmatic lead assistant, whose skepticism rivaled his own, armed with a clipboard and an unshakable resolve. Then came Ben, the tech specialist, a nervous but brilliant young man perpetually surrounded by a symphony of blinking lights, whirring machines, and a spaghetti-like tangle of cables. And finally, Clara, the sensitive, a young woman whose quiet, almost ethereal demeanor belied a profound, almost painful connection to the unseen world, a sixth sense that often left her drained and vulnerable. Their shared mission, to systematically debunk the persistent myths, to meticulously uncover the logical, scientific explanations for the alleged phenomena that had plagued Blackwood Manor for generations, turning it into a local legend. "All right, team, listen up," Eris announced, his voice, usually so clear and authoritative, echoing unnaturally, almost swallowed, in the vast, cavernous foyer. The space was dominated by a grand, decaying staircase, its ornate banister crumbling, that spiraled dramatically into impenetrable darkness, like a maw leading to some unknown abyss. The air was thick, heavy, with the cloying scent of ancient dust, deep-seated decay, and something else entirely, a faint, sickly sweetness, like overripe fruit left to rot, or perhaps something far more sinister, that made Clara visibly recoil, a shiver running through her slender frame. "Lena, begin setting up the environmental sensors immediately. I want comprehensive readings on temperature, humidity, air pressure, and electromagnetic fields on every single floor. Ben, get the high-definition cameras and sensitive audio recorders operational in every room, especially the ones with the most reported activity. And Clara," he turned to her, his expression softening slightly, "just observe. Tell us what you feel without any preconception, any filtering. Your intuition is our early warning system." Clara nodded slowly, her eyes already wide, not with fear, but with a profound, almost sorrowful recognition, as she scanned the oppressive shadows that clung to the corners of the vast hall. "It's intensely cold here, Eris," she murmured, her voice a soft, almost imperceptible whisper, as if speaking too loudly might disturb something ancient and sleeping. "And it feels like a lot of people are here, so many presences, but they're not alive. Not anymore. They're stuck." A faint tremor ran through her, despite the warmth of her heavy wool sweater. "The air feels heavy, like it's pressing down on me. And that smell, it's like something sweet, but also rotten. It's everywhere." The house, they quickly discovered, was not merely old. It was a labyrinth woven from forgotten lives, a mausoleum of lingering memories. Each room held a suffocating stillness, a profound quietude, as if time itself had stopped abruptly within its walls, freezing every moment of its tragic history. In the grand drawing room, a once magnificent space now draped in dust sheets, a baby grand piano sat with its lid askew, its keys yellowed and silent, like ancient teeth. Yet, As Lena passed it, adjusting a sensor, she swore she heard a faint, discordant chord, a single mournful note that seemed to hang in the air for a fraction of a second before vanishing. She shook her head, attributing it to fatigue, but a prickle of unease lingered. Ben's sophisticated EMF meters, usually so stable, flickered erratically in the vast, echoing library, a chamber lined with towering, moldering bookshelves, their leather-bound tomes crumbling to dust, their knowledge lost to time. "Getting some serious spikes here, Dr. Thorne," Ben reported, his voice tinged with an uncharacteristic nervousness, his usual tech-savvy confidence wavering. "Higher than anything I've ever seen in a residential setting. It's like something's actively generating a massive electromagnetic field, and it's pulsing." Eris, ever the unwavering scientist, meticulously noted every anomaly, every fluctuating reading, every unexplained temperature drop that registered on their thermal cameras. "Interesting," he'd muse, his brow furrowed in concentration, but his tone remained detached, analytical, a shield against the growing unease. He was searching, desperately, for a rational explanation. A faulty wire, a structural draft, a trick of the mind, a collective hallucination induced by the oppressive atmosphere. He refused to entertain any other possibility, not yet. "We'll cross-reference these with the architectural plans. There must be a logical explanation for these energy surges." As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, plunging Havenwood into the velvet embrace of night, the house truly began to come alive. The wind outside picked up, no longer a gentle breeze but a mournful, keening lament that rattled the broken window panes, a sound that seemed to seep into the very bones of the structure, echoing the house's ancient sorrow. The EMF meters, scattered throughout the manor, began to scream in unison, their needles jumping wildly, their digital displays flashing frantic, impossible numbers. The temperature in the main hall plummeted, a sudden, icy blast that made them all shiver violently, their breath pluming in front of them like ghostly exhalations. "Did you hear that?" Lena whispered, clutching her data tablet to her chest, her eyes wide, darting towards the grand staircase. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper seemed to drift from the upper floors, a sound like dry leaves skittering across polished wood, or perhaps something far more sinister, something dragging itself across the floorboards. It wasn't the wind this time, it was distinct. "Just the wind, Lena," Eris replied, his voice a little too quick, a little too firm, betraying the tremor of doubt that was beginning to crack his scientific resolve. But his gaze, despite his words, was fixed on the grand staircase, where the shadows seemed to deepen, to writhe, to coalesce into indistinct, shifting forms. He felt a cold prickle on his skin, a sensation that defied logic. Clara, however, was no longer merely observing. She stood in the very center of the vast foyer, her eyes tightly closed, her slender body trembling violently, swaying almost imperceptibly, as if buffeted by unseen currents. Her hands were pressed against her temples, as if trying to contain a cacophony of voices. "They're here," she breathed, her voice filled with a profound, almost unbearable sorrow, a lament that mirrored the house's own. "So many of them, they're trapped, bound, and they're angry. So angry. And afraid." She swayed again, her knees threatening to buckle. Suddenly, with a startling, resonant tick-tock, the old grandfather clock in the corner, which hadn't chimed in decades, its intricate gears long since seized by rust, began to tick. A slow, deliberate, impossibly loud sound that filled the vast silence, each beat echoing like a hammer blow against their eardrums. Then, with a groan of tortured, protesting gears, it began to chime. Not the stately, comforting Westminster chimes of a well-kept home, but a discordant, frantic clangor, each strike a different, jarring note, a cacophony of madness that seemed to tear at the very fabric of the air, assaulting their senses. "Ben, shut that thing down," Eris ordered, his voice sharper than usual, laced with a raw edge of panic. A flicker of genuine, undeniable unease finally crossed his face, shattering his carefully constructed scientific detachment. Now! Ben, startled, rushed towards the clock, his movements clumsy in the dim, flickering light. But as his hand reached for its swinging pendulum, a sudden unseen force slammed the heavy wooden door of the clock shut with a resounding crack, trapping his arm inside. Ben cried out, a sharp, guttural sound of pain and terror, his face contorted, his body jerking violently. Ben! Lena screamed, her voice piercing the discordant chiming, rushing to his side, frantically trying to pry the heavy door open, her fingers scrabbling uselessly against the unyielding wood. Eris, for the very first time in his long, distinguished career, felt a cold, undeniable dread seep into his scientific detachment, chilling him to the bone. This was no draft, no faulty wiring, no trick of the light. He saw the pure, unadulterated terror in Ben's eyes, the impossible strength of the unseen grip that held him. This was real. This was beyond his understanding. Just then, as if on cue, the lights in the foyer flickered violently, plunged them into near absolute darkness, then flared back to life with a blinding, painful intensity, revealing a grotesque tableau. In the shadowy alcove beneath the grand staircase, where the darkness had seemed deepest, a figure stood. It was indistinct, a swirling, roiling mass of shadow, but its form was vaguely, terrifyingly human, impossibly tall and gaunt, its limbs elongated, distorted, its eyes, twin points of burning, malevolent light, fixed on them, two searing embers in the abyss of its face. "It's the master," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible, a fragile thread of sound, her body swaying precariously as if about to collapse. "He's the one who keeps them here. He feeds on their despair. He's the collector." The shadowy figure advanced, slowly, deliberately, each silent step echoing in the sudden, profound quiet that followed the clock's cessation. Its presence chilled the air further, making their breath plume in thick, white clouds. A faint, cloying scent, like the one Clara had noticed earlier, intensified, now mixed with something acrid, like burnt ozone or the metallic tang of old blood. It was the smell of ancient malice. "Stay together," Eris commanded, his voice strained, laced with a desperate urgency, pulling Lena and Clara behind him, instinctively shielding them with his own body, despite having no weapon, no scientific instrument that could possibly combat this. His mind, usually so rational, was reeling, struggling to comprehend the impossible. The figure reached the foot of the staircase, its glowing eyes burning into them, twin beacons of malevolence. Then, from the upper floors, from every room they had just surveyed, a chorus of whispers began, growing louder, more frantic, more desperate, a cacophony of tormented voices. "Help us, trapped, release us, free us, please, it hurts." "They want out," Clara gasped, pointing a trembling finger upwards, her eyes wide with a profound empathy that mirrored their terror. "He won't let them. He won't let anyone leave." The shadowy figure raised a hand, a gesture of immense, unseen power, and with a deafening crash that shook the very foundations of the house, the heavy, ornate chandelier above them plummeted from the ceiling, shattering on the marble floor, sending razor-sharp shards of crystal flying in every direction. They scattered, narrowly avoiding the deadly debris, their hearts hammering against their ribs. "We need to find the source," Eris yelled, his scientific mind still desperately clinging to the need for a rational solution, a central point of energy, a weakness to exploit. "Ben, where are your highest EMF readings?" "The absolute peak." Ben, finally freed from the clock's impossible grip, his arm bruised and trembling, his face ashen, pointed a shaky finger towards the library, his voice a choked whisper. "In there, it's off the charts. It's alive." They retreated, scrambling towards the library, their movements clumsy in their terror, the shadowy figure pursuing them with an unnerving, silent swiftness, its presence a cold shadow at their heels. The whispers followed, a chorus of desperate pleas and furious cries, a living, breathing soundscape of torment. The library was even colder, the air thick with the scent of old, decaying paper and something else, something metallic and cloying, like the scent of a forgotten slaughterhouse. The EMF meters screamed, their needles buried deep in the red, their frantic beeping a counterpoint to the terrifying silence. In the very center of the room, on a large, ornate desk covered in centuries of dust, a single, leather-bound journal lay open, its pages yellowed and brittle. "The Master's Journal," Clara whispered, her eyes fixed on it with a morbid fascination. He wrote everything down, his experiments, how he trapped them, how he feeds. As Eris reached for the journal, his fingers trembling, the shadowy figure materialized directly behind him, its cold, unseen hand closing around his throat, its grip impossibly strong, impossibly cold. He gasped, struggling for breath, his vision blurring, the room spinning. "Eris!" Lena screamed, grabbing a heavy brass candelabra from a nearby shelf, its weight surprisingly substantial. She swung it wildly, a desperate, futile blow. It passed through the shadow, but as it did, a faint, high-pitched shriek echoed through the room, a sound of pain, of something being momentarily disrupted. The shadow recoiled slightly, its form flickering, its hold on Eris loosening. "The journal!" Eris choked out, pointing a trembling finger at the open book. "Read it. Find a way. A weakness." Lena snatched the journal, her eyes frantically scanning the faded, spidery script, her mind racing. It was a chilling, meticulous account of a man obsessed with capturing and containing human consciousness, of grotesque experiments conducted within the very walls of the house, of souls trapped between worlds, forever bound to his malevolent will. He had used a complex array of mirrors, arranged in specific, geometric patterns and specific frequencies of sound, a dark, arcane ritual to bind them to the manor, to create a living prison. "He used the mirrors," Lena cried, her voice trembling with a mixture of horror and dawning understanding. "And the sound. He trapped them with sound and reflection. It's a resonance chamber. Around them, the whispers intensified, growing into a furious, desperate roar, a cacophony of suffering. The shadowy figures pressed in, their glowing eyes burning with renewed malice, their forms more distinct, more menacing. The air crackled with a malevolent energy, a palpable pressure that threatened to crush them. "What do we do?" Ben yelled, brandishing a camera, its flash going off uselessly against the incorporeal forms, a pathetic defense. "We're surrounded. The generator!" Clara suddenly exclaimed, her eyes wide with a desperate, almost divine insight, a spark of hope in the suffocating darkness. "The power! If we overload the system, disrupt the frequencies, it might break the binding. It's the only way." Eris, still gasping for air, his throat raw, nodded frantically, his scientific mind now fully embracing the impossible. "Ben, the main breaker, in the basement. Overload it. Now, find the resonance chamber." Ben, his face pale but resolute, a newfound courage in his eyes, dashed out of the library, the shadowy figures momentarily distracted by the sudden movement, their attention fragmented. Lena, meanwhile, flipped frantically through the journal, searching for any other clues, any weakness, any diagram that could guide them. "He called it the resonance chamber," Lena cried, pointing to a crude, unsettling diagram on a yellowed page. "A specific room in the basement. That's where the power source is. The heart of his ritual." Eris, with a desperate surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, managed to break free from the shadowy grip, stumbling, gasping for air, his throat raw. "Clara, Lena with me. To the basement. We have to sever the connection." They plunged into the oppressive darkness of the service stairs, their footsteps echoing eerily. The whispers and wailing followed them, growing more frantic, more desperate, a chorus of tormented souls clinging to their last hope. The air grew colder, the scent of decay stronger, mixing with the metallic tang of old wiring. They navigated the labyrinthine basement, a maze of forgotten pipes and dusty machinery, guided by Ben's distant shouts and the increasing hum of electricity. a low thrum that vibrated through the very floor. They found Ben struggling with a massive, old-fashioned breaker box, its rusted lever stiff, refusing to budge. Sparks flew wildly from its exposed, frayed wires, illuminating his frantic efforts in brief, terrifying flashes. The shadowy figures were already there, swirling around him, their forms more defined in the confined space, trying to stop him, their unseen hands pushing against him. "It's too strong," Ben yelled, his hands slipping on the corroded levers, his face contorted in a desperate grimace. "I can't get it to trip. The light," Clara cried, her eyes fixed on a single, bare bulb flickering erratically above the breaker box, its dim glow struggling against the encroaching shadows. "It's connected. The master's power is tied to the house's electricity. It's feeding off it." Lena, remembering the chilling details from the journal, saw a faint, almost invisible symbol etched into the damp, crumbling stone wall beside the breaker box, a complex sigil, a binding rune, pulsing faintly with a dark, malevolent energy. This is the key. It's a focal point, the source of the binding. "Smash it," Eris yelled, grabbing a heavy, rusted wrench from a nearby workbench, its cold metal a surprising comfort in his hand. "Break the connection, now." He swung the wrench with all his might, a desperate, primal scream tearing from his throat, slamming it against the sigil. As the metal struck the stone, a deafening crack echoed through the basement, a sound of something ancient and terrible shattering. The lights in the entire house flickered violently, spasmodically, then blazed with an unnatural, blinding intensity, a searing white light that seemed to burn away the darkness. The shadowy figures shrieked, a chorus of pure, agonizing torment, their forms twisting and contorting, dissolving like smoke in a sudden, powerful gust of wind that swept through the basement. The cloying, sickly scent vanished, replaced by the clean, sharp smell of ozone, of raw, unleashed energy. The wailing and whispers reached a final, desperate crescendo, a symphony of torment and despair, then abruptly ceased, swallowed by the profound silence that followed. Silence. Profound, blessed, absolute silence. The oppressive cold lifted, replaced by a normal ambient temperature, as if the house had finally exhaled a century of trapped breath. The lights in the house, throughout every room, returned to a steady, normal glow, no longer flickering or dim. The old grandfather clock in the foyer, they would later find, was silent once more, its pendulum still, its gears finally at peace. They stood panting in the basement, their bodies trembling, their muscles aching, but a strange, profound sense of calm settled over them, a lightness that bordered on euphoria. The air felt clean, purified, cleansed of the lingering malevolence. The oppressive, suffocating weight that had pressed down on them for hours was gone, lifted like a heavy shroud. "It's over," Clara whispered, tears streaming down her face. But these were tears of relief, of release, of profound, overwhelming peace. They're free. All of them. Eris, his scientific mind still trying to process the impossible, the undeniable, looked at the shattered sigil, then at Clara, his face a mixture of awe, disbelief, and a dawning, humbling understanding. I don't understand how. Some things, Eris, Lena said, her voice soft, her own eyes filled with a quiet wonder, aren't meant to be understood, only believed, and sometimes fought against. They spent the rest of the night meticulously documenting the now empty house. The EMF meters were silent, their screens blank. The temperature remained stable, normal. The unsettling scents were gone, replaced by the faint smell of old wood and dust. Blackwood Manor was still old, still decaying, its paint peeling, its windows grimy, but the malevolence that had clung to it for a century, the hunger that had consumed so many, had been banished. They left at dawn, the rising sun painting the sky in hues of gentle pink and gold, a promise of a new day. Blackwood Manor stood quiet on the hill, no longer a skeletal silhouette of dread, but a grand, if faded, old house, its secrets finally at rest. They had not debunked the myths, but confirmed them, and in doing so had offered peace to the tormented souls within. Epilogue. Years turned into decades, stretching out like the vast, indifferent plains they once traversed, each one a testament to their survival. The new city became home, its vibrant rhythm slowly, gradually, soothing the deep wounds left by the Blackwood Manor, yet never fully erasing the faint, indelible scars. Sarah, now a woman with silver threaded through her once golden brown hair, her laugh lines a testament to quiet joys found after profound sorrow, would often sit on her porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and violet. It was a peaceful scene that belied the lingering shadow of her past. She had indeed built a good life, a full life, finding a quiet, steadfast companionship with Mark, the kind man she'd married years later. He was a rock, solid and understanding, accepting her silences and the occasional, unexplainable tremors that would ripple through her, even in the brightest daylight. She never fully articulated the horrors of the manor to him, not in explicit detail, but he understood the deep, unspoken grief, the missing piece of her heart, the quiet vigilance in her eyes. Their love was gentle, built on shared moments of warmth and the quiet strength of acceptance. Professionally, Sarah found purpose in advocating for families navigating unexpected tragedies, drawing on her own deep well of empathy to guide others through their darkest hours. A quiet, unwavering beacon of support. She became a pillar of quiet strength in her community, her resilience forged in the fire of that terrifying night. The nightmares, once a nightly torment, softened over time, becoming less frequent, less vivid, eventually fading to a low hum of unease that she learned to live with, like an old, familiar scar. She had learned to distinguish the phantom scratching from the real creaks of her comfortable home, and the distant wailing from the lonely cry of a distant train. She learned to appreciate the mundane, the predictable, the quiet safety of a well-lit room. Dr. Eris Thorne, the man of science, had faced the undeniable, and it had irrevocably altered the trajectory of his life and career. His theories had been shattered, his meticulously constructed worldview expanded in a way he could never have imagined. He continued his research into parapsychology, but with a newfound humility, an openness to the unseen, to the whispers that conventional science alone could not explain. He became a bridge, a cautious pioneer, between the empirical and the ethereal. His later academic papers, while still rigorously scientific, subtly hinted at the limits of conventional understanding, at the vast, unexplored territories of consciousness and existence, often citing anomalous energy signatures and unexplained sentient phenomena without ever explicitly naming Blackwood Manor. He established a small, discreet foundation dedicated to investigating similar cases, not to debunk, but to understand, and where possible, to help. He never spoke of Blackwood Manor publicly, not in detail, but the quiet intensity in his eyes when the topic of unexplained phenomena arose spoke volumes to those who knew him well. He carried the weight of what he had witnessed, a profound responsibility to those who suffered in silence. Lena, pragmatic as ever, found herself unexpectedly drawn deeper into the esoteric. Her sharp intellect, once focused solely on data analysis, now sought patterns in ancient symbols, forgotten languages, and the lost rituals of various cultures. She became a leading expert in the intersection of science and folklore, seeking to understand the power of belief and ritual, not as superstition, but as a forgotten technology for interacting with unseen forces. She helped Eris with his foundation, becoming its quiet, indispensable backbone, meticulously archiving every strange report, every chilling account. She often found herself poring over old texts, her fingers tracing diagrams of protective sigils, her mind open to possibilities she would have scoffed at before Blackwood Manor. She learned to trust her gut instincts as much as her data, a profound shift for a woman who had always relied solely on logic. Ben, though still a tech wizard, his fingers still flying across keyboards and circuits, developed a healthy, almost reverent respect for the inexplicable. His gadgets became more refined, more sensitive, designed not just to detect, but to understand the subtle nuances of paranormal energy. He designed specialized sensors that could differentiate between residual energy and active, sentient entities, and developed new methods for recording and analyzing anomalous auditory phenomena. He always kept a small, charged EMF meter in his bag, a personal talisman, just in case, and his home was filled with subtle, almost imperceptible wards and protective charms, a quiet acknowledgement of the world he now knew existed beyond the visible spectrum. He found a strange peace in the knowledge that there were still mysteries beyond human comprehension, and dedicated his life to exploring them, one flickering light and strange hum at a time. And Clara, the sensitive, continued to offer her unique, profound gifts to those who sought understanding, becoming a quiet, sought-after figure in the burgeoning field of spiritual aid. She helped to bridge the gap between the living and the lingering echoes of the dead, her empathy a guiding light in the darkness. She never fully recovered from the emotional toll of connecting with so many tormented souls at Blackwood Manor, but she found purpose in her pain, using her abilities to bring peace to others, to help the lost find their way. She learned to manage her gift, to shield herself, to choose when and where to open herself to the unseen. She often worked alongside Eris's foundation, her insights proving invaluable, her quiet wisdom a stark contrast to the scientific jargon. She was forever touched by the spirits of Blackwood Manor, now finally at rest, their whispers gone, replaced by a profound, enduring silence that she carried within her, a testament to the peace she had helped them find. She learned to find beauty in the quiet, in the absence of sound, a deep appreciation for stillness. Blackwood Manor itself remained, a silent sentinel on the hill. Locals, for generations, continued to weave its tale into hushed campfire stories, a chilling cautionary legend passed down from parent to child, its details growing richer, more fantastical with each retelling, yet always rooted in the stark reality of what had occurred. The road leading to it remained unmaintained, eventually overgrown completely, a forgotten path swallowed by the encroaching wilderness, a testament to the community's unspoken agreement to leave the old terrors undisturbed. Travelers who strayed too far, relying solely on outdated GPS systems or simple curiosity, occasionally reported strange phenomena, inexplicable car troubles, sudden shifts in weather, a pervasive sense of dread, a chilling whisper on the wind, but none, it seemed, ever managed to reach the inn itself after that night. The light had worked. The generator, a monument to their desperate triumph, had kept the darkness at bay, burning away the malevolence that had clung to the physical structure. The inn now stood as a mere ruin, its power broken, its hunger starved, its malevolent master banished to whatever hell he had conjured. But its history, its indelible scar on the landscape of reality, remained, a silent reminder of the thin veil between worlds. The team, these unlikely heroes, remained tightly bound by their shared secret, their collective trauma, and their profound victory. They didn't have an annual ritual, no grim pilgrimage to the now silent manor, but every year, on the anniversary of that fateful night, a quiet understanding passed between them. A knowing glance, a shared meal, a moment of profound, wordless connection that spoke volumes of what they had endured together. They had faced true horror, confronted the incomprehensible, and emerged, not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, forever changed. It had irrevocably shaped their perception of the world, fostering a deep distrust of simplistic explanations and an acute awareness of the fragile membrane separating the mundane from the monstrous. Yet, it also instilled in them an extraordinary appreciation for the ordinary, for warmth, for laughter, for the simple, precious act of being together in a well-lit room, for the quiet peace that followed the storm. The master was gone, the souls were free, and the house, finally, was just a house. Epilogue Part 3. As the decades deepened, the legacy of Blackwood Manor and the extraordinary team that faced its darkness began to subtly ripple outwards, touching lives far beyond their immediate circle. Their individual paths, once distinct, now intertwined in a complex tapestry of influence, their shared experience becoming a quiet, yet powerful, force for understanding in a world still largely blind to the unseen. Sarah, her hair now a luminous white, became a revered elder in Havenwood, a living repository of local history and quiet wisdom. While the official narrative of Blackwood Manor remained one of an abandoned, dilapidated structure, Sarah's presence, her knowing gaze, and her gentle yet firm guidance often steered the town's response to other, smaller anomalies that occasionally surfaced. A sudden cold spot in the old church, a persistent, mournful melody heard near the ancient cemetery, a series of unexplained power surges in a historical building. These were no longer met with outright dismissal, but with a quiet consultation with Sarah. She never sensationalized, never claimed to be a medium, but her empathetic understanding of human fear and the subtle energies that lingered proved invaluable. She taught her grandchildren, and eventually great-grandchildren, not just stories of courage, but a profound respect for boundaries, for the sacredness of places, and for the unseen currents that flowed beneath the surface of everyday life. Her garden, now sprawling and vibrant, became a place of healing, its fragrant blossoms a testament to life's persistent beauty even after profound loss. She found a deep, abiding peace, knowing that the souls of Blackwood Manor were truly at rest, and that her own family was safe, protected by the light they carried. Dr. Eris Thorne's Thorne Institute for Anomalous Phenomena, once a niche, almost clandestine operation, slowly gained quiet international recognition. It became a hub for interdisciplinary research, attracting physicists, historians, psychologists, and even theologians who dared to bridge the gap between their respective fields. Eris, now a venerable figure, continued to lead, his mind as sharp as ever, but his approach was infused with a profound philosophical depth. He often lectured to closed-door sessions of government agencies and scientific bodies, presenting meticulously gathered data on non-local consciousness and energetic imprints, subtly shifting the paradigm of how such phenomena were perceived. His work led to the development of new, non-invasive technologies for environmental energy mapping, initially designed for paranormal research but later finding applications in fields like geology and even urban planning, detecting subtle energetic shifts in the Earth itself. He never sought fame, only understanding, and in doing so, he quietly revolutionized the study of the inexplicable, leaving behind a legacy that would continue to challenge conventional thought for generations. Lena, as the Institute's director, became its operational genius, a master of logistics in the face of the illogical. She oversaw complex field investigations, coordinating teams across continents, meticulously documenting every nuance of reported phenomena. Her work in translating and deciphering ancient texts led to breakthroughs in understanding the historical context of paranormal occurrences, revealing patterns and practices that spanned millennia. She developed a comprehensive database of anomalous events that became an invaluable resource for researchers worldwide, a testament to her dedication to cataloging the unseen. Lena's pragmatic skepticism, honed by her initial experiences, ensured that the Institute's findings, however extraordinary, were always grounded in rigorous methodology and verifiable data. She found a quiet satisfaction in bringing order to chaos, in making the incomprehensible, if not comprehensible, then at least quantifiable. Her personal life remained private, her dedication to the Institute almost monastic, but the profound sense of purpose she derived from her work was evident in every precise, confident decision she made. Ben, the technological visionary, continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. His innovations at the Institute led to the creation of handheld devices capable of real-time spectral analysis of subtle energy fields, and even rudimentary, non-invasive methods for energetic purification of spaces, drawing directly from the generator's effect on Blackwood Manor. His work was highly sought after by private individuals and organizations dealing with persistent, unsettling phenomena, though he remained selective, ensuring his technology was used ethically and responsibly. He established a small, independent workshop, a haven of wires, circuits, and glowing screens, where he continued to experiment, driven by an insatiable curiosity. He taught a new generation of engineers and tech specialists, instilling in them not just technical skills, but an open mind and a healthy respect for the forces they might encounter. His personal life was filled with quiet hobbies, a stark contrast to his groundbreaking work, finding peace in the predictable logic of machines, even as he built tools to explore the unpredictable. Clara, the heart of the team, expanded her reach, becoming a global advocate for those with psychic sensitivities. She founded a network of support groups and educational programs, helping countless individuals understand and manage their unique gifts, transforming what was once a burden into a source of strength and purpose. She taught meditation and grounding techniques, not as spiritual practices, but as essential tools for mental and energetic hygiene in a world filled with unseen influences. Her quiet, compassionate presence brought comfort and validation to many who had felt isolated and misunderstood. Clara's work was less about scientific measurement and more about human connection, about healing the emotional and spiritual wounds inflicted by encounters with the unknown. She wrote several influential books, gentle guides to navigating the subtle energies of life, filled with anecdotes and insights, though never explicitly detailing Blackwood Manor. Her legacy was one of profound empathy, of bridging the gap between fear and understanding, and of bringing light to those who felt lost in the shadows. Blackwood Manor, now a forgotten mound of rubble and overgrown vines, ceased to be even a footnote. Its physical presence had dissolved, and with it, the last vestiges of its malevolent history faded from human memory, except for the few who had stood against it. The road leading to it was truly gone, swallowed by the forest, a path that no longer existed on any map, physical or digital. The triumph of the team was not in its destruction, but in its neutralization, in freeing the trapped souls and breaking the cycle of torment. The team, now in their twilight years, continued their annual gatherings, their numbers occasionally joined by their adult children, who, though they hadn't witnessed the horrors directly, understood the profound significance of their parents' experiences. These reunions were less about the past and more about the present, about the enduring strength of their bond, the quiet joy of their shared lives. They had faced true darkness, confronted the incomprehensible, and in doing so, had not only survived but had helped to illuminate a path for others. Their journey had not ended at Blackwood Manor. It had merely begun, leading them to lives of purpose, of understanding, and of a profound, enduring light that shone brightly against any lingering shadow in the world. They were the quiet guardians, the unseen protectors, leaving a legacy of courage, knowledge, and compassion that would echo through generations. A testament to the fact that even in the face of unspeakable horror, humanity's light could prevail. Elias, his camera still clutched in his hand, looked at the quiet, empty town. He had come for a story, and he had found one far more terrifying and far more profound than he could have ever imagined. He had not debunked a myth, but confirmed a horror, and in doing so, had offered peace to an entire town of tormented souls. They left at dawn, the truck starting without a hitch this time, its engine humming a steady, comforting rhythm. As they drove away, the silent town receded into the darkness, a mere ruin on a forgotten road, its malevolence stripped bare, its secrets finally at rest. They never went back, but the experience had changed them forever. Elias, the hardened cynic, became a man who understood the profound mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of everyday life, his lens now seeking not just images, but truths. Chloe, the hopeful in turn, became a journalist driven by a deeper purpose, seeking out not just stories, but truths that resonated with the unseen, her idealism tempered by experience, but never extinguished. They carried the scars of that night, but also a newfound understanding, a profound appreciation for the fragile boundary between life and what lies beyond. Epilogue Part 2. Decades continued their relentless march, blurring the sharp edges of memory, yet never quite erasing the deep imprint left by the silent town. The duo, now seasoned veterans of the inexplicable, found their paths diverging and converging in unexpected ways, their lives a testament to the enduring power of shared trauma and the profound, transformative nature of confronting the unknown. Elias, his face now a roadmap of deep, weathered lines, retired from active photojournalism, but his camera remained his constant companion. He became a sought-after lecturer, speaking at universities and exclusive conferences, not about the sensational, but about the profound, often unsettling, beauty of the world's hidden places. He never explicitly detailed the events of the silent town, but his carefully curated photographs and his philosophical reflections on the liminal spaces of existence resonated deeply with audiences. His work explored themes of absence, lingering energy, and the thin veil between dimensions, often hinting at the profound, unquantifiable forces that shape reality. He published a critically acclaimed book, Echoes of the Unseen, a collection of his most haunting images, accompanied by poetic, enigmatic prose that invited readers to question their own perceptions. Elias found a quiet peace in his later years, knowing he had borne witness to something extraordinary, and that his art could now serve as a subtle guide for others to look beyond the obvious. He spent his days in a secluded cabin, surrounded by nature, finding solace in the quiet hum of the natural world, a stark contrast to the unnatural silence he had once encountered. Chloe, her bright eyes now holding a deeper, more knowing light, rose to prominence as an investigative journalist specializing in unexplained phenomena. She approached her work with a unique blend of rigorous research and an open mind, meticulously piecing together fragmented accounts, historical documents, and scientific data to shed light on cases that mainstream media dismissed as hoaxes or folklore. She became a voice for the marginalized, for those who had experienced the inexplicable and were met with disbelief. Her articles, often published in prestigious, albeit niche, journals, were compelling, meticulously researched, and deeply empathetic, giving credence to experiences that defied logic. She never forgot the lessons of the silent town, the importance of listening to whispers, of trusting intuition, and of understanding that some truths exist beyond the realm of conventional proof. Chloe founded a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting victims of unexplained phenomena, providing resources, counseling, and a safe space for sharing experiences. She became a quiet advocate, a fierce protector of the vulnerable, her mission driven by the memory of the trapped townspeople. The silent town itself, after its release from the collector's grasp, slowly began to succumb to the natural processes of decay. The buildings, once eerily preserved, now truly withered. Paint peeled, wood warped, and roofs sagged under the weight of time and weather. The single light bulb in the town square remained dark, its power source severed. The road leading to it, once a treacherous path, became almost impassable, reclaimed by the encroaching wilderness. It transformed into a true ruin, indistinguishable from any other forgotten settlement, its malevolent history slowly fading from the collective consciousness of the region, becoming a mere footnote in local folklore, a cautionary tale whispered by old-timers. The collector's power, once so absolute, was utterly broken, his binding rituals undone, his hunger starved into oblivion. The souls he had tormented for so long were truly free, their wailing replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves, their whispers by the soft murmur of the wind, finally finding eternal rest. The town, once a prison, became a grave, a quiet monument to a forgotten horror. The bond between Elias and Chloe remained strong, a silent understanding forged in the crucible of shared terror. They didn't have annual rituals or grim pilgrimages, but every few years, they would meet, often in a quiet, unassuming diner far from any haunted roads, and share stories, not just of their work, but of their lives, their triumphs, and the quiet joys they had found. They had faced true darkness, confronted the incomprehensible, and emerged, not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, forever changed. Their experience had irrevocably shaped their perception of the world, fostering a deep distrust of simplistic explanations and an acute awareness of the fragile membrane separating the mundane from the monstrous. Yet, it also instilled in them an extraordinary appreciation for the ordinary, for warmth, for laughter, for the simple, precious act of being together in a well-lit room, for the quiet peace that followed the storm. The collector was gone, the souls were free, and the town, finally, was just a town. Their journey had not ended at the silent town. It had merely begun, leading them to lives of purpose, of understanding, and of a profound, enduring light that shone brightly against any lingering shadow in the world. Epilogue Part 3. As the final decades of their lives unfolded, Elias and Chloe, now venerable figures in their respective fields, found their legacies intertwining, their individual contributions creating a ripple effect that subtly reshaped the global understanding of the inexplicable. Their story, though never fully revealed to the public, became a whispered legend within the specialized communities they served, a testament to courage and the enduring power of truth, however terrifying. Elias, in his extreme old age, became a recluse, his cabin a sanctuary filled with the echoes of his life's work. He spent his days developing a unique photographic process, a method of capturing not just light, but subtle energetic imprints, creating images that seemed to hum with an unseen life. These photographs, never publicly displayed, were shared only with a select few at the Thorne Institute, serving as invaluable data points for their ongoing research. He believed that the camera, in the right hands, could be a window into the unseen, a tool for documenting the very fabric of reality beyond human perception. His final project was a series of abstract, almost spiritual images he called the Veil, capturing the elusive boundary between worlds, a visual representation of the profound shift in his understanding. He passed away peacefully in his sleep, his camera clutched to his chest, leaving behind a legacy that would continue to inspire generations of artists and researchers to look deeper, beyond the surface. Chloe, a celebrated journalist whose work had brought solace and understanding to countless individuals, eventually retired from active reporting. She dedicated her remaining years to teaching, establishing a specialized program at a renowned university for investigative journalism of anomalous phenomena. Her curriculum was revolutionary, blending traditional journalistic ethics with a rigorous, open-minded approach to the unexplained. She taught her students to seek not just facts, but truth, to listen to the marginalized, and to approach the world with both skepticism and wonder. Her lectures were legendary, filled with compelling case studies, always anonymized, never sensationalized, and her own quiet, profound insights into the nature of reality. She instilled in her students a deep sense of responsibility, reminding them that their work was not just about reporting, but about protecting, about giving voice to the voiceless, and about bringing light to the darkest corners of human experience. Chloe became a mentor to a new generation of truth seekers, ensuring that the lessons learned from the silent town would never be forgotten, but would instead serve as a foundation for future exploration. She lived a long, fulfilling life, surrounded by loved ones, her spirit as bright and inquisitive as it had been on that fateful day, her heart forever marked by the silent town, but also forever free. The silent town, by this point, was nothing more than a faint memory, a ghost on old maps. The forest had completely reclaimed the dirt track, swallowing it whole, leaving no trace of the path Elias and Chloe had once traversed. The ruins of the general store, the church, the houses, they had all crumbled into dust, absorbed back into the earth, indistinguishable from the surrounding wilderness. Nature, in its relentless cycle, had erased the physical scars, leaving only the profound, peaceful silence that now truly defined the area.
No Vespers, no Veiling, no Cloe incense.
The land was finally at peace, its tormented past laid to rest. The legacy of Elias and Chloe, and the extraordinary events they faced, lived on not in public sensationalism, but in the quiet, profound shifts they initiated within their respective fields. Their work, once considered fringe, slowly began to influence mainstream thought, fostering a greater openness to the complexities of consciousness, energy, and the human experience beyond the purely material. They had, in their own unique ways, helped to subtly thin the veil between worlds, not by tearing it down, but by illuminating its existence, allowing for a deeper, more nuanced understanding of the universe. Their shared experience, a crucible of terror and triumph, became the bedrock of their enduring friendship, a bond that transcended time and distance. They were the quiet pioneers, the brave witnesses, who had stared into the abyss and brought back not just a story, but a profound truth, that even in the face of unspeakable horror, the human spirit, armed with curiosity, courage, and a relentless pursuit of truth, could find a way to bring light to the darkest of places and ultimately to find peace. Their journey, born of a vanished town, had led to an expanded understanding of existence itself, a quiet revolution in the way humanity perceived its place in the vast, mysterious cosmos. The old, battered pickup truck, its engine coughing a weary, asthmatic rhythm, lumbered down a forgotten stretch of highway, a ribbon of cracked asphalt that seemed to unravel into the very heart of nowhere, far from any major city or even a discernible sign of civilization. Inside the cramped cab, the air was thick with the scent of dry pine needles, the lingering bitterness of stale coffee, and the faint, almost imperceptible metallic tang of impending rain, a promise of moisture that never seemed to arrive. Elias, a grizzled photojournalist whose face bore more wrinkles than years, each line a testament to countless sunrises and dusty roads, gripped the steering wheel with a practiced, almost unconscious tension, his keen eyes scanning the endless, monotonous tree-line that pressed in on either side. Beside him, his young assistant, Chloe, a bright-eyed intern fresh out of journalism school, her idealism still untarnished by the world's harsh realities, meticulously scrolled through maps on her tablet, her brow furrowed in a concentration that belied her youthful enthusiasm. They were on assignment, chasing a whispered rumor, a local legend so obscure it bordered on the mythical. It was a tale of a town that simply vanished. Not a ghost town, not a ruin reclaimed by nature, but a place that, according to fragmented historical records and hushed local tales passed down through generations, had simply ceased to exist on any modern map, its inhabitants gone without a trace, leaving behind only questions. Elias, a cynic by trade, his skepticism a well-honed defense mechanism against the absurdities of the world, saw it as nothing more than a quirky human interest piece, a chance to capture some atmospheric shots of forgotten Americana, another notch on his belt of journalistic exploits. Chloe, however, harbored a secret, thrilling hope, a flicker of genuine excitement that they might stumble upon something truly extraordinary, something that would redefine the boundaries of belief. "Are you absolutely sure this is the right road, Elias?" Chloe asked, her voice a little too high, a nervous tremor betraying her composure. The paved road, which had been crumbling for miles, had long since given way to a narrow, overgrown dirt track, barely wide enough for the truck, with dense, ancient trees pressing in from both sides, their gnarled branches intertwined overhead, forming a perpetual, suffocating twilight. The GPS, a modern marvel rendered useless, had died miles ago, replaced by a blank screen and a mocking, taunting no signal message that seemed to mock their reliance on technology. Elias grunted, a non-committal sound, as he consulted a faded, brittle, hand-drawn map he'd acquired from a particularly eccentric local historian, a man known only as Old Man Hemlock, whose eyes held a strange, distant knowing. "Old Man Hemlock swore this was it," Elias muttered, tracing a finger along a faint, almost invisible line on the yellowed paper. "Said the road doesn't like to be found, whatever in God's name that means." He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound that was immediately swallowed by the oppressive silence of the forest. The air was unnaturally still, heavy, and strangely cold for a summer afternoon, carrying a faint, almost metallic tang. The usual symphony of the wilderness, the chirping of crickets, the distant call of birds, the rustle of small animals in the undergrowth, was conspicuously, unsettlingly absent. It was a silence that felt less like an absence of sound and more like a profound, watchful presence. "It feels wrong," Chloe whispered, pulling her thin jacket tighter around her, despite the lingering warmth of the day. "Like the air is holding its breath, like something is waiting." She shivered, a deep, involuntary tremor, just as doubt began to fester, a cold, insidious worm gnawing at their resolve. A sudden, unexpected break in the dense tree-line revealed a faint, flickering light in the distance. Hope, sudden and irrational, surged through them, a desperate, almost painful wave. "A town!" Elias exclaimed, his voice cracking with relief, pressing the accelerator with renewed vigor. The truck protested with a groan, its engine straining, but it surged forward. Old Man Hemlock wasn't crazy after all. "We found it." The light grew stronger, resolving into a single bare bulb hanging precariously from a weathered wooden post, its feeble glow struggling against the encroaching gloom. Beneath it, A cluster of buildings emerged from the shadows, a general store with a sagging porch, a few unassuming houses with dark windows, and a small church with a leaning steeple, its cross silhouetted starkly against the bruised sky. It wasn't a ruin, it was a town, but something was off, profoundly, unsettlingly off. It was too quiet, too still. As they drove into what appeared to be the town square, a dusty, unpaved expanse, the silence deepened, becoming absolute, suffocating. No dogs barked, no distant murmur of traffic, no children's laughter. No doors stood ajar, no curtains swayed in a breeze. The buildings, though seemingly intact, their paint faded but not entirely gone, were utterly devoid of life. Windows were dark, some boarded up with rough-hewn planks, others simply empty, like vacant, unblinking eyes staring into nothingness. The paint on the houses was faded, peeling in long, ghostly strips, like old skin. But there was no dust, no cobwebs, no signs of long-term abandonment that Elias, with his experienced eye, would expect. It was as if the inhabitants had simply stepped away, mid-sentence, mid-action. "Hello!" Chloe called out, her voice barely a whisper, a fragile sound immediately swallowed by the vast, unnatural stillness that pressed in on them from all sides. "Is anyone here? We're lost." Only the echo of her own voice answered, a faint, mocking reverberation that seemed to bounce off the silent buildings. Elias cut the engine, the sudden cessation of the truck's weary rumble leaving a deafening silence, a vacuum of sound that pressed in on them, making their ears ache. He grabbed his camera, a heavy, professional-grade DSLR, its cold metal a familiar comfort, but his hands trembled slightly, a tremor he couldn't quite suppress. "This isn't a ghost town, Chloe," he murmured, his voice low, filled with a dawning unease. "It's preserved, like a photograph, but too perfect." They stepped out of the truck, the gravel crunching loudly under their boots, the sound shockingly loud in the profound quiet. The air was still, heavy, and carried a faint, cloying scent, like old potpourri mixed with something else, something vaguely metallic and sweet, like dried blood or decaying flowers. The ground beneath their feet was strangely soft, almost spongy, despite the lack of recent rain, yielding unervingly with each step. They walked towards the general store, its wooden porch creaking ominously under their weight, the sound a mournful sigh. The door was unlocked, swinging inward with a low groan, revealing an interior bathed in perpetual twilight. Inside, time seemed to have frozen abruptly. Shelves were meticulously stocked with dusty cans of food, faded boxes of cereal, and rows of ancient, unopened newspapers, their headlines screaming forgotten crises. A ledger lay open on the counter, a pen beside it, as if the proprietor had just stepped away for a moment, mid-transaction. A faint, almost imperceptible layer of dust lay on everything, but it was a thin, undisturbed film, not the thick, suffocating blanket of decades. "Look at this," Chloe whispered, her voice filled with a dawning horror, pointing a trembling finger to a date on a newspaper. July 14th, 1978. That's 47 years ago, but it looks like they just left yesterday. Elias felt a cold prickle on the back of his neck, a sensation of being watched that raised goosebumps on his arms.
No dust, no dica.
No signs of forced entry. How is this possible? What could make an entire town just stop? As he spoke, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper seemed to drift from the back of the store, a sound like dry leaves skittering across the floor, or something else, something dragging itself, something with too many limbs, too many joints. It was a sound that defied explanation. "Did you hear that?" Chloe asked, her eyes wide, darting nervously towards the darkened back room, her hand instinctively reaching for Elias's arm. "Just the wind, Chloe," Elias replied, his voice a little too quick, a little too firm, but his grip on his camera tightened, his knuckles white. He was a scientist of the lens, a man who believed only what he could capture and analyze, but even his hardened skepticism was being tested, stretched to its breaking point. They ventured deeper into the town, each step a conscious effort. The schoolhouse stood silent, its windows dark, its desks neatly arranged in rows, chalkboards covered with lessons half-finished, as if the bell had just rung for recess. The church pews were empty, hymn books open on the stands, a sermon left unsaid. In one of the houses, they found a half-eaten meal sitting on a dining table, plates covered with a thin, almost translucent film that shimmered faintly in the dim light. A child's wooden train lay discarded on the floor, a single block fallen from its tracks, as if dropped mid-play, frozen in an instant. A half-knitted scarf lay on a rocking chair, needles still threaded with yarn. "They didn't leave," Chloe murmured, her voice filled with a dawning, profound horror, her eyes wide with a terrible realization. They just stopped, like a paused movie. But why? As dusk bled into night, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and deep indigo, the town took on a more sinister aspect. The single light bulb in the town square flickered erratically, its feeble glow struggling against the encroaching darkness, casting long, dancing shadows that played tricks on their eyes, making the empty streets seem to writhe, to twist into grotesque, living forms. The air grew colder, a sudden, sharp drop in temperature that made their breath plume, and the cloying, sweet scent intensified, now mixed with something acrid, like burnt sugar, or something even more unsettling, something ancient and malevolent. Suddenly, a low, mournful wailing began, distant at first, a faint, sorrowful cry carried on the non-existent breeze, then growing closer, circling the town. A chilling lament that seemed to seep into their very bones, echoing the profound despair of countless lost souls. It wasn't an animal. It was too human, too full of profound, ancient sorrow, a sound that spoke of endless torment. "What is that?" Chloe gasped, clutching Elias's arm, her nails digging into his skin. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror. Elias, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs, pulled out his portable audio recorder, its small red light blinking. The wailing was directly outside the general store now, a guttural, sorrowful sound that seemed to press against the very walls. He saw nothing but deeper shadows and the twisted shapes of the ancient trees pressing in on the town, their branches like grasping claws. Then, abruptly, the wailing stopped. An abrupt, terrifying silence followed, even more unsettling than the sounds that preceded it. A vacuum of sound that pressed in on them, amplifying the frantic beat of their own hearts. And then, a faint, rhythmic scratching began, emanating from the walls of the general store, like tiny claws dragging against plaster, or something far more deliberate, something trying to get out. "We need to get out of here," Elias whispered, his voice raw, a primal urge to flee overriding all journalistic curiosity. They scrambled back to the truck, their movements clumsy in their terror, their eyes darting nervously into the surrounding shadows. Elias fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking so badly he almost dropped them. He jammed the key into the ignition, turned it with a desperate prayer. The engine coughed, sputtered once, a weak, dying gasp, then died. He tried again and again, but it remained stubbornly silent, mocking their desperation. From the shadows of the general store porch, where the darkness seemed deepest, a figure emerged. It was indistinct, a swirling mass of shadow, its form shifting and coalescing, but its shape was vaguely human, impossibly tall and gaunt, its limbs elongated, distorted. Its eyes, twin points of burning, malevolent light, fixed on them, two searing embers in the abyss of its face, filled with an ancient, insatiable hunger. "It's the collector," a voice whispered, not from the figure itself, but from the very air around them, a chorus of dry, rustling voices, like 1,000 brittle leaves skittering across pavement. "He found them. He keeps them. He collects." "Who are you?" Chloe cried out, her voice trembling, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and desperate confusion. The shadowy figure advanced, slowly, deliberately, each silent step echoing in the profound quiet. Its presence chilled the air further, making their breath plume in thick, white clouds. The cloying scent intensified, now overwhelmingly strong, making them gag, a sickening aroma of decay and something metallic. From the dark, empty windows of the houses, eyes began to appear, dozens, hundreds of pinpricks of light, glowing with an eerie, malevolent luminescence, fixed on them, watching. "They are the townspeople," Chloe whispered, her eyes wide with a dawning, terrible horror, tears streaming down her face. "They're still here, trapped. He took them." Elias grabbed a heavy, tactical flashlight from the truck, its beam cutting a fragile swathe through the gloom, swinging it wildly, a desperate, futile blow. But it passed harmlessly through the shadowy forms. They were incorporeal, yet their presence was overwhelmingly real, a suffocating weight that pressed down on them, stealing their breath, their hope. "What do you want from us?" Elias yelled, his voice strained, raw with fear and frustration. The shadowy figure made no sound, but the chorus of whispers intensified, growing into a furious roar, a cacophony of hungry, eager voices, surrounding them, overwhelming them. "Join us, stay forever hungry. So hungry for life, for warmth, for light." A new sound joined the whispers to a faint, almost imperceptible hum, emanating from the ground beneath their feet, growing stronger, vibrating through the earth, a low, resonant thrum that seemed to shake the very foundations of the town. The power source. Elias realized, a sudden, desperate flash of insight, remembering Old Man Hemlock's cryptic warning. "The town breathes. It has a heart. Find its pulse. There's something beneath the town, something keeping it alive, something feeding it." He remembered a small, old well pump near the church, its iron handle rusted, its wooden casing weathered. It was the only thing that seemed out of place, too modern for the town's apparent age, almost humming with a subtle energy. Chloe, the well, near the church. There must be an energy source there, a central point. They ran, scrambling through the silent streets, their movements clumsy in their terror, the shadowy figures pursuing them with renewed vigor, their glowing eyes burning with malevolent intent. The hum from the ground intensified, a low, guttural thrumming that vibrated through their bones, making their teeth ache. They reached the well pump, its iron handle rusted, its wooden casing weathered and ancient. The hum was deafening here, vibrating the very air, making the ground tremble beneath their feet. "It's a conduit," Chloe cried, pointing to strange, almost invisible symbols etched into the stone base of the well, pulsing faintly with a dark, malevolent energy. Like a binding ritual, it's drawing energy from somewhere deep beneath the earth. It's the heart of the collector's power. Elias grabbed a heavy crowbar from the truck bed, which he'd brought just in case for stubborn doors, its cold metal a surprising comfort in his trembling hand. He slammed it against the stone base, aiming for the pulsing symbols. As the metal struck the stone, a deafening crack echoed through the town, a sound of something ancient and terrible shattering. The hum intensified, reaching a painful crescendo, then abruptly ceased. The shadowy figures shrieked, a chorus of pure, agonizing torment, their forms twisting and contorting, dissolving like smoke in a sudden, powerful gust of wind that swept through the town. The cloying, sickly scent vanished, replaced by the clean, sharp smell of ozone, of raw, unleashed energy. The wailing and whispers reached a final, desperate crescendo, a symphony of torment and despair, then abruptly ceased, swallowed by the profound, blessed silence that followed. Silence. Profound, blessed, absolute silence. The oppressive cold lifted, replaced by a normal, ambient temperature, as if the town had finally exhaled a century of trapped breath. The single light bulb in the town square flickered wildly, then died, plunging the town into natural darkness, a darkness no longer filled with menace. The houses, now truly abandoned, seemed to sag, their windows no longer vacant eyes, but simply empty panes, reflecting the faint starlight. They stood panting, their bodies trembling, their muscles aching, but a strange, profound sense of calm settled over them, a lightness that bordered on euphoria. The air felt clean, purified, cleansed of the lingering malevolence. The oppressive weight that had pressed down on them was gone, lifted like a heavy shroud. "It's over," Chloe whispered, tears streaming down her face. But these were tears of relief, of release, of profound, overwhelming peace. They're free, all of them,